Paradox webinar today. My name's Steve Hemsworth. I'm New South Wales Sales Manager at Harbour IT, and today I'll be your host. But while I have introductions, I think we'll have Andy Davis, who's a Senior Solutions Architect within Harbour IT, as one of the main presenters, and a co-presenter, Adrian Capolino, who is Head of Pre-Sales for Canon Business Services, Australia and New Zealand. Joining us, and I'm glad to say, is Phil Meyer, from Microsoft Technology Specialist with over 30 years of experience within Microsoft. And we're also supported by our team at Arrow, who are, hello Phil, and also supported by our team at Arrow, who are specialists in Microsoft licensing, and want to make a big shout out to them for the help they actually given the background in organising this. So a lot of experience on today's call, so thanks very much for that, and a lot of work's gone into this, so we really appreciate you joining us to listen about the modern work paradox. So a little bit about our business. Most of you have probably heard of Harbour IT. Most of you have possibly heard that we're now part of Canon. So how does it actually look and feel, and what sort of services are we as a business delivering? So Harbour IT is a division in, or a name within, Canon Business Services. We've merged with our sister company Converger. The business is really focused on optimization, and that focuses on people, whether that's processes or technology. And today is a great example of how you optimize people, process and technology. So the whole division's really worked within that. We're a division within Canon. We've got about 1,600 staff, 24/7 operations, and nudging up to the high 100 millions in revenue now. So we're not the largest, I guess, integrated reseller. We do have some differentiators that we do a lot of firsts around process and technology optimization. For example, Harbour IT were the first ever to produce an all-flash cloud, and we knew what flash did to the business. Right, had accelerated operations within databases that could never been seen before. Converger just most recently are the first company in Australia to provide robotics process automation as a service. So the company's on a massive growth trajectory. We're growing in all the right places. We are innovative as Canon is itself, and excited to be your host today. So let's start. What is a hybrid paradox? And I was talking to Andy about this, and we were sort of discussing what it actually means. And we've all lived in a fairly unique world for the last 2 years. I don't know about you, but I wasn't keen on driving an hour and 20 minutes to St Leonard's every single day and back, and then forgetting my laptop at home and having to drive back to get it. I don't know if everyone's done that. I've done it twice, and it's really annoying, right? And or even commuting all the time. It wasn't a great life cycle. You didn't see your family at all. So along comes COVID, and all of a sudden we're home 5 days a week. And I think, I don't know about you, I kind of enjoy working at home. After 7 or 8 weeks of lockdown, watching the sun go past my window, I'm kind of getting over it. And just prior to this last lockdown, I was really enjoying going into the city for 2 or 3 days, spending some time with my colleagues, catching up with people in the industry, having lunch, having a beer after work, but still having the ability to work at home 2 or 3 days a week. And I think that flexibility, and hopefully that flexibility, will be released really soon. So the paradox for all businesses moving forward is really, how are we going to have a completely agile workforce that can really move within the newest technologies to look at how do you deliver this paradox? Because you'll have people that work 5 days a week in the office, and then occasionally they work from home. You'll have people that work from home the whole time. You'll have people that will chop and change, and understanding how we can actually deliver that with modern technologies to make it simple for an information technology division to deliver that is what we're going to be talking about today. It's really about optimizing things and making them simple and making them flexible. So before I pass over to Andy as our main speaker, I just want a little bit of housekeeping. We want questions, please. We would like as many questions as possible. Pop them into the chat box. We won't be going through those during the presentation because it will just be too hard with so many people on the call, but we will be answering them at the end and going through those too. So please, as something comes to your mind during the presentation, don't wait to the end, pop them in there and we'll address that at the end. Lastly, it's important that we get this content right for you. It's relevant to you. This is an hour of your time. It's many hours of Andy and Phil's time putting this content together as well. So there is a survey at the end. It's just a QR code that you need to scan in. We'd really appreciate some feedback on this as well. So without any more ado, I'll pass over to Andy. And Andy, I'll let you explain how we solve the hybrid work paradox.
Thanks, Steve. That's great. Okay, guys, thank you. Welcome, and thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedules for what I hope will be an informative session for you all. As Steve mentioned, I think this is a topic that interests a lot of us at the moment, particularly with extended lockdowns that we've had here in Australia, and obviously particularly here in Melbourne, where I am. I know personally I'm very excited to see how the world of IT is reacting to the new hybrid work model and the challenges it presents. And I'm also very excited that we'll be covering Windows 365 and diving into how this can help you and your business. Okay, so what is the hybrid work paradox? So this is something that Satya Nadella shared on his LinkedIn recently. According to our research, we're talking about Microsoft here, the vast majority of employees say that they want more flexible remote work options, but also at the same time, they want that more in-person collaboration post-pandemic. This is the hybrid work paradox. So I think, as we all know, the pandemic has forced a lot of organisations to, allow staff, or almost force staff, to work remotely. And really, both organisations' employees have seen the benefits. I mean, Steve was talking about, being able to work from home, some, increase in family time, but also not having to worry about the commute, forgetting your laptop when you do get to the office, and impacting your work. I'm guessing really post-COVID, when we eventually get out of these lockdowns, every organisation will be different. I'm sure there's organisations that will probably want to move back to 5 days a week, but I think the large majority of work will be done, remotely and hybrid. So I think, employees will probably adopt more of a split model with up to 2-3 days working remotely. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the shifting workforce and organisational needs. Organisations everywhere have a growing need to support hybrid work policies, and in general, really, the flexible work policy, enabling elastic workforces, temporary or seasonal workers, and people working across company-owned and personal devices. Every day, our customers are dealing with expansion and change, while also building new businesses and products. And they need to react quickly to global economic shifts, all the while facing a complex cybersecurity landscape, probably the most complex we've seen to date. All these challenges were true before COVID-19, but I think we can all agree that the transformation has been accelerated and the paradigm for hybrid work has shifted due to COVID. So at Harbour IT, we're seeing a lot of customers experience the same. Okay, so what are employees saying? So 73% of workers say that they want more flexible work options. 67% of employees want more in-person collaboration, and 80% of managers want more flexible work from home policies. So really what we can see here is, there's nearly the same percentage of people that want both. They want that flexible option to work remotely, but they also want that more increase of in-person collaboration. So that's basically, the hybrid work paradox. Okay, so what are the challenges faced by organisations today? Now, this one made me laugh when this came out, probably last year. I think people were sharing this around social media. What has accelerated hybrid work? There's a great few memes that you've probably seen, what has led to digital transformation of a company. Generally, the answer should have been, or should be, the C-level suite of leaders. There's a lot of forward-thinking leaders out there. But I think we can probably all recognise that COVID, forcing people to work from home and remotely, has really accelerated that change. So really, I think, as we can all say, hybrid work is here to stay. Okay, so with hybrid work, there's a great set of new opportunities for business, but there's also a whole new host of challenges when you're trying to get your staff to work remotely. I think we all know firsthand that the shift to the hybrid work, does this. So particularly, we've seen issues across onboarding and provisioning, trying to get the business continuity for our customers, and things like security and regulation, becomes a bit of a minefield when we start to work, across different areas, different locations. So at Harbour IT, we've seen a lot of our customers face these challenges in the last year as they try to move to that remote workforce, and with the extended lockdowns, it's caused all sorts of issues. A lot of our customers have faced challenges, particularly around that onboarding provisioning. We've had customers that have software solutions such as Intune on their roadmaps. They've probably been on there for a couple of years. We've never quite got round to delivering that. However, now they're seeing the need to accelerate that adoption. They need to be able to manage their endpoint devices outside of a corporate network. And some businesses just weren't geared up for that. Now we're seeing also a year, 18 months later, we're still seeing customers face ongoing issues with enabling that hybrid work model within their IT infrastructure. Okay, with that, I'm actually very pleased to be handing over to Phil. He's going to give us an update and a bit of insight into the Microsoft perspective.
Thanks, Andy. Hi, I'm Phil. Thank you. I will start with a thank you to reiterate the thanks that Andy and the team have given already for your time today. I know that we're all very busy at this time. Well, certainly we have been. And to amplify the point that Andy did make about digital transformation and COVID, we have been incredibly busy here at Microsoft supporting the needs of partners such as Harbour IT and customers such as you in what COVID has done around a forcing factor on digital transformation. I recall would have been around March, May last year. Again, to reiterate the point that Andy made, there were plans in place with some very large banks and large governments to transition to hybrid work, to remote desktop scenarios that had been 2-year plans that were accelerated to 2 weeks. Tens of thousands of the deployments out of the Azure Virtual Desktop as it was then, and what Andy is so kindly going to talk to later is more on Windows 365 as an approach. I just wanted to take this opportunity, and again, I do thank the team at Harbour IT for the opportunity to just step back a little bit on the broader topic of digital transformation. We just don't see it as being a hybrid work, and so I paint this slide, and if you'll indulge me for a moment to explain, I might just reverse it slightly to show that build again, if I may. And if I also may use an analogy. The analogy I'm going to use is to describe each of those circles on the right-hand side as being meals, dishes that you would like to have. And think of our friends here at Harbour IT as being a restaurant that you go to get those delicious meals. So in this particular case, you're looking for something that's empowering your employees. And I know that you'll possibly come and speak to them about better engaging your customers and your stakeholders, or driving out costs in the way in which you run your business, or do something transformational in the way in which you're delivering services in the healthcare sector, doing manufacturing processes, providing services to citizens, or providing banking services and retail services. And that's wonderful. What I really appreciate about the team at Harbour IT is they come to the store on the left-hand side, which is, if you will, the Microsoft supermarket. And in that supermarket, there's a rich vein of different products, meats, vegetables, sauces, spices that they can draw on. So whether it's modern work and what you know as Microsoft 365 and the security portfolio, or business apps, Dynamics 365, ERP, accounting, operations, marketing, infrastructure in terms of Azure and all that it offers around data and AI and cognitive services and machine learning. The point is that all those elements that are in our supermarket are built to work together. And that makes it, we feel, easier for the team at Harbour IT to build solutions that meet your particular requirements. Solutions that blend from all of those different building blocks, which, as I say, are built to work together. So the meal at the end of the day tastes better. It's easier for them to make, and it's easier for you to enjoy that experience, that it all works together with common identity, common security, common management, and common compliance. And that does lead to that experience of digital transformation being easier. Now, I do like to use this slide because I do meet many partners and many customers in my journey, my 30-year journey at Microsoft. And I do recall the first days when Office was created back out at, yes, right here in Sydney. It was created when we were putting Word, Excel and PowerPoint together and wrapping it together, and somebody said, hey, why don't we get one piece of paper, wrap it around those three and call it Microsoft Office. And when Bill visited and he saw that, he went, that is a product, and it became Microsoft Office. Well, since those humble days of 30 years ago, Microsoft is a lot more, Office is a lot more than that. And in fact, it's had a name change. It is now Microsoft 365. So actually the Office word is still there in part, but in the main, it's Microsoft 365 and includes many other capabilities that I've listed there on the screen. Marianne's kindly used forms at the end to do a survey. You'll be able to use a QR code and she'll be capturing data, your feedback, your comments, your thoughts for doing customer polls and feedbacks. The team is kindly using Teams today. And Andy and I and the team have co-authored. There's no multiple versions of PowerPoints that have kicked around for today. We have co-authored on a single presentation. We can be editing it now live and working collaboratively on that. And how does that go to the core of hybrid work? That whether I'm working at home over my network or whether I'm working in the office, I've got the ability to collaborate seamlessly on PowerPoint, Excel, Word documents, and even third-party environments, plus run webinars. We had one run the other day for over 250,000 attendees. An area that we've seen tremendous usage of a component of this family that is more than just Word, Excel, and PowerPoint now is Power Platform. During the pandemic, we've seen in the healthcare sector, particularly the usage for COVID testing clinics of Power Platform, low code, no code, move to contactless, move away from paper-based processes to mobile and web. Indeed, the analytics side now surfacing through Viva for your staff experience, bringing in mental health considerations around usage patterns with the Viva elements there. Our partnership with Headspace right here in Australia, which is looking at those usage patterns of staff to identify where there are signs, early warning signs of those patterns. And Andy did kindly also mention security as being paramount at this time, and hence the focus around single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, which is a simple way to address 99.9% of the attacks that are out there by simply turning on a bit that's in Microsoft 365, and the team at Harbour IT are more than ready to come out and help you activate that service to help you eliminate that attack pattern. Information protection, you're all in business. You're probably all aware of notifiable data breach laws that came into effect about 2 and a bit years ago, where if any personally identifiable information leaves your organisation, you need to notify the relevant authorities. That capability exists in the family as well. Antivirus, anti-malware, anti-ransomware, anti-phishing, of course, plus full device management, app management. And that device management is cognizant of a hybrid workspace, a hybrid world where you might be using a virtual desktop. Some staff are using an iPhone or an iPad. Some might be on an Android, and they might even be using a PC. So that full spectrum of devices is managed seamlessly. And with the help of Harbour IT and their managed services arm, they can even undertake that function to support you so you can focus on your business and they can focus on making sure your business runs efficiently. Another element that's included there is the Azure virtual desktop element, and Andy, I know, is going to do a wonderful job of positioning that with Windows 365 later on. In closing it out, just did want to make sure you are aware of some of the best practices that indeed the team at Harbour IT do look to and share and leverage in taking that experience to you to enable employees to work remotely and stay more secure as they do that work. And I've put a short URL down the bottom of the screen that you may want to jump to if you're interested in getting quick access to that. But it's interesting, the splash screen features one of the key steps to undertake, which is enabling that single sign-on and multi-factor authentication for when they're using their computers at home or whether they're getting a new computer. Look, this is actually a slide that does date itself. It's dated, and I'm happy to use it even though it's dated because it amplifies the point that Andy made earlier about COVID. Prior to COVID, these were the 4 primary pillars that people looked towards around digital desktop virtualization. They were looking at concerns around regulatory requirements to comply, where they had staff overseas, but data needed to be resident within a sovereign nation such as Australia. They had mergers and acquisitions to deal with, and they needed to readily move staff who were using a different payroll system to a new parent company's payroll system. So they were able to activate that through their existing desktops. There were specific employee scenarios where they wanted BYOD and mobile. They had call center staff. And my primary area that I'd seen a lot of use of virtual desktop was around the support of legacy applications, Windows applications as legacy applications, but enabling them on things like iPads and Galaxy tablets and on Mac devices that were inside organizations. But with COVID, it didn't matter. We needed a way to use computers that were at home, Macs that were at home, tablets that were at home, to access line of business applications that were probably Windows, client server Windows-based applications, web-based applications that existed in your businesses. Now it's interesting, as of August 2, you've actually got a choice. Since the 2nd of August, we introduced a new service called Windows 365, which is, to steal a little short expression, it's a cloud PC, a PC in the cloud. And you also have the Azure Virtual Desktop. And I know, again, Andy's going to do a good job of positioning the whys and wherefores of Windows 365 versus Azure Virtual Desktop. But to my mind, just drop to the bottom line. One is about simplicity, very easy to activate, with a predictable user price, because we've had feedback from you saying, oh, I'm not sure about this whole, okay, we've got a subscription to it, but we don't know how much it's going to cost at the end of the month based on usage. So we've introduced a predictable price per user. But if you like the idea of ups and downs and fluctuations based on user activity, you've also got the flexible consumption-based model with the Azure Virtual Desktop. So I'm closing that out. Do think about the slide that I presented at the beginning about the meals, that digital transformation is more than just secure hybrid work. But if we drill down into that empowering employees, we do ask that you think more about Office than just being Office, that your subscription now is to multiple devices, including your Macs, including your iPhones, including your in fact, just to share a little insight, our primary direction is to develop the latest releases for iOS and Android. Windows actually falls behind. So it's a recognition that there's billions of those devices out there, so that your experience with those applications is first class, first citizen on those non-Microsoft operating system devices. You've got the ability to add the Teams functionality. It's part of those subscriptions in Business Premium and Enterprise. You get the security elements, and potentially that could save you money. You may have, depending on the organization on this call today, anything from 15 to 100 different security vendors, identity management, anti-phishing, malware protection products. I'd commend you to talk to the Harbour IT team to think about how you can consolidate towards using the Microsoft 365 platform and eliminate some of that cost. And I know we're under financial pressure. Eliminating cost around some of those elements might be something advantageous to your business. You also get the MDM and MAM, so you don't need the AirWatch and the mobile irons anymore. These technologies are in the box. You get the Azure Virtual Desktop, and you may want to talk to the team again about the simplicity of adding Windows 365, a cloud PC, to better experience your hybrid work in a synchronized way with a predictable cost. Andy, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk. Maria, thank you very much for the opportunity from Microsoft, and I'll pass back to you.
Thanks, Phil. That was fantastic. Thanks for the update. Okay, all right, guys. So how do we solve the hybrid paradox? Now, as we briefly spoke about before, COVID has forced organisations into a hybrid work model and a flexible way of working. what I love is that Microsoft have created a guide for business leaders to share what they're learning at scale. This is something they've been doing for a number of years, and they really concentrate on 3 key pillars. That's the people, the places, and the processes. And as Microsoft obviously have transitioned and have transitioned to hybrid work, they're also helping other organisations around the world to make that shift. So really looking at people, hybrid work is inevitable. They're basically saying create the culture to enable it, empower managers to lead the shift, build a listening system, help people learn and grow in the flow of work, combat digital exhaustion from the top. I think we could all probably relate to that one, and embrace flexibility to attract and retain new and diverse talent. So moving forward, the modern employee is going to want to have flexible work, and if your business isn't offering it, then they're going to go elsewhere. They're going to want to go work where they can actually be a bit more flexible. The places, so really bring people back to the workplace safely. So obviously at the moment, especially New South Wales and Victoria, we can't go back into the office. Queensland's a little bit different. But also design for the people not in the room. So, how do you get people engaged when they're not necessarily in a meeting room altogether? Okay, and also transform your physical spaces into intelligent powered services. So, really enabling that kind of collaboration feel within your workspaces. As for the processes, use Teams to transform your business. So Teams is a fantastic collaboration tool, and I think we all saw last year Microsoft were inundated with the increase with Teams use and Teams usage. Move everything to the cloud as quickly as you can. So yeah, obviously making your processes, your applications, available from anywhere. Digitize every process from operations to sales. So I know we had a lot of customers last year when they moved to working remotely, had a lot of kind of paper-based processes that were still reliant on being in the office. The quicker and faster you can digitize these processes, the quicker and easier it is to enable that remote workforce and the hybrid way of work. And then probably the most important is really mandating zero trust security from cloud to the edge. So it's really quite key when you've got workers, employees that are working across from anywhere. You need to ensure that your data is secure and your IP is secure. And reduce that kind of attack surface that presents itself when employees are outside of the corporate network. So I think hybrid work is here to stay. I think this will be different across every organisation. It affects, the people, the places of work, the processes, but fundamentally the technology that underpins the processes. And technology here is really where Harbour IT come in, and we can help you with you and your business to transition to the new hybrid world. Okay, so how do we do that? So let's look at the approach, how we approach things at Harbour IT. And for this, I'm going to hand over to Adrian.
Cool, thanks, Andy. So yeah, so obviously there's, as you can see, there's a bit involved between aligning, going through the business change, and then sort of working through the technology stack as well. So at Harbour, we've got a pretty well-defined process and how we go about helping our customers or potential customers, and we've got it sort of broken up for this particular session into sort of 4 key areas. The first and most important thing that we go through with in our engagements and helping customers decipher what's the right thing to do is truly understanding the business. So understanding what the business strategy is for any particular organisation. What are their goals? What are the current challenges? Because even though we do see a very similar challenges across organisations, there's always that little bit that's different. That's going to really help us define what the next step is going to look like, and that's looking at defining the IT strategy and roadmap. Right. So helping we go about helping our customers clearly define what that IT strategy looks like and roadmap, but always ensuring that it's aligning back to a business goal or a business strategy or challenge, right? So that way it's helping our IT teams and organizations that we're working with clearly articulate this is why we're choosing this particular product or technology, because it's going to help the business move forward. How we kind of do that, and there's multiple ways that we go through in defining that IT strategy and roadmap, is we follow defined frameworks and methodologies, and there's many out there. We've developed over many years of experience to sort of keep it in a more simplified fashion. We don't have to make it, overly difficult or strenuous, but we have various frameworks that are provided either from Microsoft or our own in-house developed sort of, frameworks and methodologies to help decipher which way we should go, get and make educated decisions. So getting the facts, doing some assessments on the infrastructure and making sure that, again, when we choose the right technology, it's going to be the right choice. For this particular topic, which is the hybrid work, and it's obviously the end user and the endpoint, end user experience, which is critical. We go through what's called like a perform a workload assessment effectively. So understanding the cloud readiness or application cloud readiness assessments, really understand the landscape of what are these apps, can they be moved to SaaS, do they have to remain as a thick client, what's the strategy, what's the journey. And once we've performed that and helped sort of identify where we're at as far as the application stack, that ultimately combined from the very beginning of the business, the technology, the frameworks, and then the assessment will help us decide on what's the right technology that we're going to use. Right? Is it W365? Is it Azure Windows Virtual Desktops, for example? Is it a personal PC and a combination of all three, for example? And that's where it does start to create that complex situation, because many organizations, they just don't know which way to go. But in most cases, we find that it's absolutely a hybrid of one or more of the various options out there. So hopefully that sort of helps, make it a bit clear about how we go about helping solve the hybrid paradox and work from home type scenario.
Thanks for that, Adrian. Okay, so let me take you through a couple of options we currently see as important, but also customers that are demanding today from us to help them with the hybrid work model. Okay, so two of the most common solutions we're being asked about at the moment are Windows 365, obviously the latest and greatest, and Azure Virtual Desktop. We're seeing a lot of demand for both technologies as businesses want to move away from their traditional VDI platforms and adopt a more modernized solution. Okay, so Windows 365, provides simplicity. It's subscription-based, and it comes in two options: business and enterprise. With that, you get a Windows 10 personalized desktop. You can manage with familiar tools and skills, so things like Endpoint Manager. And it also provides predictable pricing, so each month you know what your bill will be. Whereas Azure Virtual Desktop, it's really geared up for flexibility and is consumption based. It provides also a personalized desktop, but can also do multi-session desktops, much like the traditional VDI solutions do. With that, you can also do remote app streaming, so you don't necessarily have to have a full desktop there. And also you can integrate into existing solutions such as Citrix and VMware cloud services. And I think the key for this is, you get a flexible consumption-based pricing, so you can, scale up, scale down as you need. Okay, so with that, how can Windows 365 and Azure Virtual Desktop help meet your business needs? So really, they center around a number of key areas, data security being one, improving your regulatory compliance, IP protection through really centralizing your data and reducing that threat surface. High capacity computing, so it gives you that cloud scale for the compute and the storage, and that can support you and your specialized workloads with things like design and development. BYOPC programs, so we know there's a lot more bring your own device policies coming into place for businesses. We need to ensure that we can provide secure cloud PCs or secure environments to work on even personal devices, so you kind of know where your data is all the time. Then disaster recovery, working in a hybrid world, it's quite key to have continuity and access for your workforce, and ensuring that your company data is accessible even in the most challenging circumstances. And I think a key one for a lot of businesses is really temporary workforces. So simplify and accelerate the onboarding and offboarding process for your elastic workforces. So, if you're going to be spinning up for a period of a few months, do you really want to go out and purchase a whole bunch of hardware? I know at the moment we've got kind of chip production issues. what's the easiest way and quickest way method of being able to scale up and scale down. Virtualization comes hand in hand with that. And then we look at mergers and acquisitions. So, providing seamless transitions and access for for growing businesses. Ensuring that a speed to perform these comes quite critical with a lot of businesses. And lastly, your Microsoft 365 applications, including Teams as a collaboration tool, that provides you consistent experience for your users wherever they're located. Okay, so I thought I'd just give you a bit of a breakdown of the evolution of VDI and the various options that comes to providing staff with VDI solutions. As you can see from the left to the right, so moving from left to right, you have your traditional on-premise RDS and Citrix VMware environments. And then as you move to the right, you've got your more modernized AVD and Windows 365 Cloud PC. Okay, so really, as you move from left to right, you can see that there's less and less to manage, but also less and less complexity as well. There's just less to configure for your IT teams, and that helps with upgrades as well, right? So, if you want to upgrade your on-premise environment, there's a whole stack of things that you need to upgrade. Whereas if you start looking at AVD and Windows 365, it gets less and less complex. Okay, just a note as well, from an architecture perspective, AVD and 365 are exactly the same. They're both using the Azure Virtual Desktop control plane. The difference being that Windows 365 is in the Microsoft subscription and Microsoft manage it, so they'll keep it up to date for you. Whereas AVD, tends to be in your own subscription, and that can be managed by yourselves or managed by your partner. Okay, as the evolution has moved forward to these services, things are just getting less complex. This helps to help with businesses driving efficiencies and less and less for your IT team to manage. Okay, so here's an infographic to help you decide whether you should go for Windows 365 or AVD. So really, if you've got a least amount of machines or not very many desktop requirements, and there's no real current planned Azure footprint, then 100% Windows 365 is there for you, and we'd probably recommend to go with a business licensing model. However, if you've got little or no desktop virtualization experience, but you're already using Microsoft Endpoint Manager to administer your physical desktops, we'd probably say, yeah, Windows 365 suits that need, but maybe move for the enterprise offering. And then really, if you've had experience of virtualization, that you need that additional customization, you want the benefits of, capacity, you want to move up and down, your usage is going to fluctuate throughout the month, then 100% we would say look at Azure Virtual Desktop. Okay, this is how we'd normally help customers in a typical scenario. Okay, so with that in mind, let's introduce Windows 365 and let's go through a little bit more detail. Okay, so Windows has been at the heart of Microsoft for decades. Windows 365 is really a hybrid personal computing that delivers Windows 10 or Windows 11 when that's available from the cloud with the Cloud PC. Cloud PCs will offer a unique set of capabilities different from what's available today. Cloud PC is your personalized desktop, it's your apps, settings and content streamed securely from the Microsoft Cloud to any of your devices. They deliver a distinct interaction between the Microsoft Cloud and the end user experience on the device, and that provides a persistent integration between the cloud and the PC operating system for a fluid and consistent experience. Provides unified security and identity management from the cloud to the device, even on a personal device. Seamless compute and storage handoff, so it can rapidly scale to meet your needs. And in the future, they'll actually provide the ability to work offline and instantly resync when connected. So that's, I think, going to be a game changer for a lot of businesses. Being able to work remotely without an internet connection and then be able to sync when you do actually have that internet connection. Microsoft is uniquely positioned to bring together the PC and the cloud with a consistent and integrated Windows experience, and Windows 365 does just that. Okay, so Windows 365 is a cloud service that introduces a new way to experience Windows 10 or Windows 11, securely streaming the full Windows experience. So that's your apps, your data, and your settings, and that can go to any of your personal devices or corporate devices. With Windows 365, you can actually assign one cloud PC or many cloud PCs that align to the work that your staff need to do. And each of those cloud PCs can align to a different configuration. So depending on the user's requirements, you can provide different compute power and storage for those scenarios. And the Windows 365 experience for the cloud PC is versatile and familiar to users, providing their personalized content settings and applications. It's simple to deploy and manage from a single console and easy for anyone to use. It's secure by design, so leaving no data on the device. And it's available on any device and optimized for the best experience on a cloud Windows PC at a predictable price. And lastly, as we talked about, it's scalable and it's resilient to support changing workforce needs and new business scenarios. Okay, so I think the great thing is with Windows 365, you can leverage your existing infrastructure. Windows 365 delivers native interaction across Azure AD, Microsoft Defender, your Microsoft 365 applications, and Microsoft Endpoint Manager. So really, you're allowing your IT to use the same tools you use today, so manage your devices. And now you can manage your physical and virtual endpoints together side by side in a single pane of glass with Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Okay, so as we talked about, the Windows 365 comes in two options. It's the business and enterprise options. Microsoft are actually offering 12 different configurations for both editions. So the individual cloud PCs can be configured with a single CPU, 2 GB of RAM and 64 GB of storage at the low end, all the way up to 8 CPUs, 32 GB of RAM and 512 storage. Okay, you can configure your cloud PCs across many different configurations to meet your users' compute and storage needs, with the ability to scale up and scale down as you need. All these configurations are available with predictable per use per month pricing, so you always know what you're getting and how much it's going to cost, which I think is great for businesses when they tight with budgets. Okay, so let's take a little look at some of the licensing. So I just put this in here just so we can have a bit of a look of a comparison between Windows 365 and AVD. So really, from a Windows 10 Enterprise perspective, the licensing requirements are the same. You need a Windows 10 Enterprise license, or you need that from your Microsoft 365 suite that includes that license as well. The compute and storage. So the difference between 365 and AVD is the fact that you'll need a 365 Cloud PC license, whereas Azure Virtual Desktop, you use your Azure consumption. From a networking perspective, so there's a couple of key differences with Windows 365 Enterprise and Business. The Enterprise is really using your Azure consumption, whereas Business, your consumption or your egress or your ingress costs are really included in the license itself, whereas AVD is obviously consumption based. And just to note around the management side of things, so from an Intune perspective, Windows 365 Enterprise is required, Business is optional, and AVD is also optional. Okay, so I thought we'd have a look at the Windows 365 Enterprise. This is the slides I put together with our licensing partner, Arrow. So thank you guys for that. I haven't included the business, as I think most people on this call will be used to or wanting Enterprise. However, if you are interested in anything about business licensing, just please send a chat in the chat window, or you can discuss with us at a later stage. Okay, so unlike other virtualization services, 365, as we talked about, is defined by a per user assigned license. And this is actually done by the the Microsoft 365 Admin Center portal. So in the same manner that you would, and your admins would basically assign other licenses, such as Microsoft 365 E3 and E5, you would do the same for the Cloud PC. Okay, so with that, so we really hope you enjoyed the webinar. I think this is, for me personally, I think this is a really fun topic to put together. I hope you all gained a lot out of this. I think we can all agree that hybrid work is here to stay. And I think what the great thing is the technology to meet this requirement is getting far more advanced, but also more integrated as well. It's making our lives easier. Myself and Adrian, as a pre-sales architect, but it's like making businesses' lives easier with their IT admins as well. Okay, so just next step. So if any of these solutions really interest you, so Windows 365, Azure Virtual Desktop, or if you want to come talk to us about anything else, we can help with a whole range of topics. Existing customers, you can contact your account manager, or if you're a new customer, potential new customer, you can go to our website and contact us through the web form. Details are there, or there's a contact number there as well. You can talk to one of our experts. Okay, so with that, I'll hand back to Steve and we can start doing a few questions.
Great, thanks so much for that, Andy. I really appreciate that. It was a great update, and also Phil and Adrian too for your input. That was very interesting. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your time today. We're going to hit to the Q&A session now. We actually have unmuted everybody, but if there's lots of questions, can you please just raise your hand first, and I'll introduce you to ask any of our speakers the relevant question. And we've got the first question from James there. James, I don't know if you'd like to unmute and ask the question directly of the team.
I can do so. I was just wondering if all regions in Australia were supported for the Microsoft Windows 365 subscriptions, or if it was just specific regions inside Australia.
Yeah, I believe they're all regions of Australia support it. Denham, you're on, aren't you, or Sam?
Yes, so there is, we can send you more information, but and yes, to your point, most of the regions are supported, and we have deployed this as well. So yes, but happy to share more information on that.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? While we wait, actually, I might just raise something that came up and landed on my lap this morning, and I'll get Andy to answer this. So Andy, we've got a common friend customer who's ordered some PCs. They've ordered them a little bit late, and instead of coming in 10 days, they're going to be here in February next year. So how would you handle that using these types of technologies?
Yeah, that's a great question, Steve. So I think, I think as Adrian spoke about, right, we normally, and this is probably more pertinent because it's one of our existing customers, actually one of my customers. So I'm already across their roadmap. I kind of know where they're moving to. We're actually helping them move from a traditional on-prem environment to Azure at the moment. So I kind of know that Azure is already on their roadmap. I also know that Azure Virtual Desktop is on their roadmap because I actually helped put that together. So I think really looking at this technology, we'd probably sit down with them and talk about the benefits of Windows 365 or AVD, and really just get to understand, what their requirements are going to be over the next year or so. There's obviously been a bit of a shift to wanting to adopt additional devices, and really just drill down to see, what we can do to solve that with some of these modern solutions.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Andy. I'm open up to any of our speakers. What sort of other use cases might you see that I guess accelerate the adoption of this newer technology when it comes to the hybrid workplace? Are there any other areas? I mean, now you can see that common customer is going to probably adopt a technology sooner than they anticipated due to external reasons that are completely out of their control, which is what we've all been living through recently, right? So what other areas are you seeing that might, I guess, force people or even, I guess, persuade them that this is probably a better way to adopt quicker rather than later? Any of the speakers?
I'll have a go at that. I've absolutely seen it for people working in remote locations where there's poor bandwidth connections and they're working with large files. The virtual desktop experience has been something that's facilitated working with 50 megabyte files, or certainly in the CAD/CAM space where they're working with potentially, gigabyte files and multiple people are trying to collaborate on it. So I know that's prior to COVID in many respects, where I'd seen a lot of traction for virtual desktop. Yeah, but I think the other aspect is, if there is this PC shortage, that we can't get deliveries, this is a way in which you can use those older devices that people have that may not meet security standards at home, that then now got a secure environment in which they can operate.
So thanks for that, Phil. So you think, the whole tree change, I mean, COVID's caused house prices in the country to go through the roof because people come into the city, well, not at the moment, but they come into the city once or twice a week instead of 5 days a week. Bandwidth in the country is fairly poor. So
yes,
same type of scenario, right?
Same scenario.
To have that full experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, really, I guess that business really then is offering their employees that complete flexibility of where they're living, as well as where they're working. So you're not tied to being within 20 k's of the city centre or 30 k's of the city centre. You can live wherever your family wants you to live, which is a bonus for a lot of people, I feel. So that's another advantage I see. Colin, do you want to open up, mate? You should be able to unmute yourself and ask that question.
Yeah, look, just to give some context, I manage 21 offices across Europe, China, Asia Pacific. We're an engineering practice in the construction space, so we've got a lot of very expensive software sitting on very expensive workstations. Someone like Autodesk, they regionally lock licensing unless you have what they call an extraterritorial rights licensing, which is ridiculously expensive. So we tend to leave our licenses inside the region, but when we've got someone traveling, some say Australia and New Zealand, it'd be nice if they could just access a workload in the cloud and then fire up the software. Autodesk say that's a conversation with Microsoft. I said, well, Microsoft's already there. Where are you guys? And so, and I don't know if anyone else deals with Autodesk. I personally can't stand them. If there's anyone from Autodesk, I'll say that to your face. We've got a lot of traditional engineering software product that is very, very archaic in the way they license. And I'm saying, well, look, you're going to lose your market. There's newer product that's less expensive that's coming up and challenging you. So is Microsoft doing anything around licensing support with sort of multi-user, multi-access across geo locations?
So we have multi-geo, so I try and make this short. Azure today, if you're subscribing to Azure through our friends at Harbour IT, you can deploy anywhere in the world, except you'll need approvals to go into US Gov and the China region. You can get approval, but yeah, you can deploy into those locations and there's no additional uplift in price just because you're going to Europe East or US West or somewhere like that. When it comes to Microsoft 365, again, talk to the team here, but if you want to have that experience for that virtual desktop in one of those locations, because it is Azure powered, again, it falls back into you choosing, and I think Adrian kindly provided a list of the various locations where we've got clear line of sight to those Azure Virtual Desktop. And remembering, as Andy pointed out, Windows 365 is actually powered by Azure Virtual Desktop. Look, I think if I consider regional restrictions, and Denham is right on the money on this one, he does know that we do have particular licensing rules to comply with taxation law, whereas if you're an Australian entity, you need to buy in Australia through Harbour. If you're a Singapore entity, you need to buy through Singapore. If you're a New Zealand entity, you need to buy through New Zealand. Now, if you've got staff who work for you in London or work for you in USA, that's fine. You can buy in New Zealand and still have the deployment into Europe West or US East. Long answer. I guess I'm showing some of the saws with respect to regional purchasing, but in terms of deployment of licensing, I'm not aware of any restrictions that we have today.
Yeah, look, I'm not concerned about the Microsoft side of things. It's actually the software you stick on the Microsoft desktop, because for us, it's a convenience.
Yeah.
You've got 50 engineers that need to access 20 licenses, and you do chase the sun. So you spin up 20 instances and you get the engineer logging from anywhere. But the issue is the software itself and where it resides and then who's accessing it. So,
sorry, can't speak to Autodesk.
No, that's all right. No one can. So,
and I just again, it's a question, Colin, to obviously speak to Andy and team, but yeah, Phil covered off the licensing regional for Microsoft front. But I suppose where you're looking at this is more of an Adrian and Andy, feel free to jump in. I'm thinking based on Colin's pain points, it's more of a solution that could possibly run with AVD versus W365, but I'll leave that to you guys to further assess.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely a challenging one, because although the software, for example, AutoCAD or whatnot, you can deploy into the virtual desktop in whatever region, I think you still have to comply with the laws of the fact that the users are connecting from those other countries, and that kind of gets tied back to the actual software vendor and just making sure that it's being used in the appropriate way. So yes, you can do it, but are you actually compliant from a licensing perspective with Autodesk? is probably where it's going to fall short. And that's the same. I've seen that same challenge across many different vendors.
Well, that's actually an interesting point you raised, because in the past, Autodesk is enforced it by traces and IP address and MAC range screening. What happens when you stick AutoCAD on one of your virtual desktops that just looked at like it goes back to a data center somewhere? Yeah,
exactly. And that's the bit that, you know, I don't know 100% how Autodesk will treat that specifically, but if it's a persistent virtual desktop in Azure with AutoCAD on it, then there's no way that they would be controlling the IP address, because the IP will be within the Azure.
Exactly. May I respectfully request that Microsoft gives Autodesk a whack over the head and get them to come to the 21st century? That'd be really great for me. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks for that question, Colin. That's a good one. So any other questions, ladies and gentlemen, please? If I can, while you're still looking at the screen, that QR code there, we'd really appreciate your feedback. You know, Andy, Phil and Adrian spent a lot of time on making sure the content's relevant. So, you know, what you say is important to us, and we appreciate your time too. So just do a quick survey would be very much appreciated. We've got 1 minute to go. Any more questions, anybody? If not, please reach out directly to your account manager at Harbour IT, or to myself, Andy, or Adrian, if you've got any questions, and we'll be more than happy to take these offline.
Look, one more question. It's Dave Wilcox here. Just in relation to, I guess, Microsoft security and working with the regulators in Australia. I work for a bank, and the regulators, and particularly APRA, are extremely important as far as our industry is concerned. And APRA has an increasing concern around cybersecurity and things like that. From a Microsoft perspective, are you working with the regulators at all on this sort of infrastructure as you build out the 365 and the Azure, you know, tenancies and things like that, and all the services that go in there? The regulator makes it our responsibility to review the controls and make sure the security is right inside these types of infrastructure. And so as this is building out, it is something that we need to keep tabs on. But from our perspective there, are you guys working with the regulator on this sort of thing? I mean, these sorts of things would make it easier for us to move forward with it.
Yeah, great question. And absolutely, we work with the regulators around the government, around financial services, in healthcare. We have individuals dedicated to that task in each location. I'd commend you to have a look at the Trust Center. I don't know what browser you use, pick or search engine, but just search for Microsoft Trust Center, and incorrectly spell center with an ER rather than RE. And you can consume from that. Now, please appreciate that, yes, these entities, these regulators will step in when looking at consuming Azure-based solutions, because we can only go so far. The infrastructure layer, the database layer, but if you're building solutions on top, they may need attestation and accreditation over and above. Because as much as we comply to the layer, you may open up things that we can't control above that layer. So for Microsoft 365, which is a finished environment, we're all good. But when you start adding on Azure, where you're building things and you don't provide the necessary securities and checks and balances, that's where the APRAs will step in. We can't fix that just because you've done it on. We'll go so far, and I refer to the slide that Andy had a moment ago, which had all those layers of the boxes on top of one another and a reducing number of boxes, and Microsoft does more. That's good. That's less that you have to go and get attested to. You only have to look at the top layers of where you add your specific value. So,
absolutely. And you know, we have specific applications and things that need to meet you know, certain security requirements, and we need to pen test, and we need to provide attestations on those sorts of things. But obviously, Microsoft services as being part of that stack, you know, when we provide those attestations, they have to be, you know, from the top to the bottom. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, I'll put the link in for you. I'm sorry, I missed the name of who asked, but I put the link to the Trust Center there, and I really call out, you know, straight away the four bullet points: our commitment to the control of your data, the transparency of location, the securing your data at rest and in transit, and we defend your data. And that last point, I've been fully aware of in a number of cases where government have asked for data, customer data from us, and we've said no, and they've taken us to court, we've paid the court costs. We haven't gone to the financial organisation and said, oh, government's taking us to court because they want your data. We said, no, not your data. Go and talk to the financial services department and the entity and ask them for the data. Oh, they won't give it to us. Tough.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Sam, would you like, oh no, I think that's just another comment for David there. But look, everybody, thank you so much for your time today, and a special thank you for the speakers as well. Phil, thank you very much for joining the team at Harbour. Denham from Arrow, thank you as well. And of course, Andy, I know you put a ton of work in, and Adrian as well. So thanks all for your time. And with that, I think we'll close up the call and have a good Thursday. And we will hopefully see you again soon for the next version of these webinars. So thanks again, everybody.
Awesome.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.